Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Pacific Grove Unified School District Elementary School Distance Learning Town Hall. It's really a pleasure to be here with all of you this evening. My name is Buck Rogeman, and I'm the principal of Forest Grove, and I'm joined by my partner.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Keller, if we haven't had the opportunity to meet just yet, and I'm the proud principal at Robert Down Elementary School. And I'll be sharing our PowerPoint this evening.
Folks, it really is a pleasure to have all of you here with us this evening. I know that many of you joining us are parents of children that are in TK through 5. And what we tried to send out this afternoon was a more detailed breakdown of what each grade levels in instructional distance learning plan is going to look like. There's been a lot of outstanding work that's gone into building these schedules. I want to just take a moment to compliment the teachers and the classified staff that served on the planning group for distance learning. They worked all day for 5 days last week to put together this distance learning plan. There were about 4 teachers represented from each grade level. And 2 of the teachers were from Robert Down, 2 of the teachers were from Forest Grove. And it was truly exciting and inspirational to watch these teachers working together to build the best distance learning plan that they could to meet the needs of our families and our students, while also taking care of our students' social emotional learning needs and also getting as much teaching and learning done as we possibly can, while we still educate our students even in the most challenging of times. So once again, we are really glad that you've joined us here this evening. And the way that the evening is going to lay out will be a discussion that Mr. Keller is going to talk about a little bit.
This is the order of our slides for this evening. And I just want to comment real quick before we go over this, that I'm very proud of our teachers as well at both Robert Down and Forest Grove. They were able to conduct themselves professionally, and they actually conducted something that has never been done in the history of Pacific Grove Unified. So we're very, very proud of them. So tonight we're going to go over a timeline of what the elementary schools have done so far to date. Mr. Rogeman is going to share the priorities and objectives that our distance learning group has conducted since May. We're then going to trade off on the elementary schedules and discuss the distance learning etiquette briefly, go over the mental health action plan, and we have both of our elementary counselors with us tonight, Sonda Fruden at Robert Down and Zoe Roach at Forest Grove. And then we definitely want to hear your questions and feedback at the end of our presentation. So we started this journey in May, and we launched our elementary parent and staff advisory groups in May. You can see the dates that are down there. We started in early May, and we actually started separately. And quickly, Principal Rogeman and I realized we needed to join efforts together. The board basically wanted us to align. They wanted a better and improved version of what families went through in the spring with distance learning, and they wanted that be an effort between our 2 schools. So we met again May 15th, May 22nd, and June 19th with our parent advisory boards from both Robert Down and Forest Grove. And our staff met from June 1st through 4th to really work on not only distance learning, but blended learning plans as well. In that first week of June, we determined 7 areas to focus on while creating our plans for distance and blended learning. That obviously was distance learning, or DL, what we've come to call it, blended learning, which is having 50% of the students on campus and 50% off during the week. That obviously is not occurring at this time. To address our mental health or social emotional learning that we need to focus on during distance learning. The disinfecting, if we were to be returning to campus. Our food service program, our before and after school program, which is BASRP for those families that are new to Pacific Grove Unified, and of course our special education and intervention programs. In the last week of June, early July, we had over 30 PGUSD elementary staff attend. That was both teachers and instructional assistants that attended the University of Phoenix Virtual Teaching Academy. And also some of you parents also participated in that, and thank you for being involved. In late June, we provided our hybrid plan overview, which really was focused on returning to campus, and we sent that out to both our Forest Grove and Robert Down families. And as you probably received, in mid-June, we sent out a survey asking families to determine whether they wanted distance learning or blended learning. And soon after we sent that out, unfortunately, the plans changed, and the governor indicated that we all needed, as public schools, needed to go into distance learning for the time being. And last week, as we mentioned before, the elementary staff came together once again, and they created grade level and curriculum planning for distance learning.
Well, it's my pleasure to talk a little bit about that week. One of the things I think that folks would want to know is that this week had been in the plan since the beginning of the summer. As soon as school ended, Principal Keller and myself sat down and put together a 50-day plan that included that virtual teaching academy that Mr. Keller referenced, where more than 30 of our teachers attended to find out some of the best practices for conducting distance learning. And then we also had earmarked the days of July 20th through the 24th to put together a distance learning plan. When we first saw those planning days, we thought it was going to be a distance learning plan that was in support of a hybrid program where students were coming to school. When we found out on Thursday that the board was going to have us do distance learning only through the month of October, then we shifted our focus for the distance learning planning to put together a distance learning only plan. And the results of that planning are what you're going to see tonight. When we sat down to talk about distance learning, one of the things we always want to keep in the forefront of our mind is how we're going to support our students from a social, emotional standpoint. All of us understand, working with TK through fifth grade students, that one of the most important factors in learning is that those students feel safe and that those students feel loved. And so from a social emotional learning standpoint, we're going to put a lot of effort into establishing that bond with our students early on in the school year, and then maintaining that bond by an increase in the live instruction that you're going to see as part of each one of these plans. One of the aspects of the feedback that we got from our survey in spring was that parents requested that teachers do more live or synchronous instruction with their students. Part of that synchronous instruction are going to be those measures that we're going to take to help address the social emotional needs of our students. The second thing that we wanted to focus on in our planning was to make sure that we had academic growth that was in support of the learning loss that was inevitable with the emergency remote learning that we were forced into in March. We all know that the circumstances in March were not the best for us to conduct distance learning. And so we really try not to even use that term. Really, that was emergency remote learning. Now we've had some time to plan, we've had some time to train, and even more than that, we've accessed the expertise of the grade level teachers across the district. More than anything, that is going to make a difference in the program that we offer. So if your child is in first grade at Robert Down, or if your child is in first grade at Forest Grove, we've set pacing guides so that they'll be studying the same thing at the same time. This might help if families are assisting other families with daycare so that the children will be studying similar concepts at the same time for those families that are going to partner. The third thing that we really wanted to focus on is what we could do to engage our students. Learning needs to be fun, it needs to be interactive and engaging. So our teachers are working hard to come up with creative ways to make this fun and interactive for their students. So some of the objectives that we set. On Monday, our teachers put together the pacing guides all the way through the October break, because that's what's been identified as distance learning. Pacing guides are simply us deciding what to teach when. So week by week, we have, I identified both the math units and the English language arts units that we are going to be teaching. On Tuesday, our teachers started to take a look at some of the supplementary applications that we could use in support of our general education curriculum. And so what we did too was we also looked at some of the online updates to Super Kids, to Benchmark Advanced, which are the two English language arts programs that we use, as well as the updates that have been done to Swan Math. That's the math program that we use, TK through 5. We also, on Wednesday, built a model instructional day. Much of the work that you're going to see in just a moment reflects that model instructional day that we've built, as well as a model instructional week. What we used as a template for those model days and weeks are what are recommended by the virtual teaching academy that we attended, as well as groups that have looked into the best way to teach students with regard to distance learning. On Thursday, what we did was we started to look at the assessments that we are going to use to do our teaching, as well as grading. The first thing that we're going to need to do is an initial assessment of our students. We know that the third trimester, some students have learned at a higher rate than others. So with our initial assessments, we're going to get an idea of the current level that all of our students are, so that we can adjust our teaching and learning accordingly. And we can use some of those supplementary applications that we have to backfill some learning gaps that may exist. At the same time, we also looked at our instructional week. You're going to notice across the board that we have chosen Monday. That is mainly going to be a teacher planning and preparation day, while there's going to be asynchronous or recorded activities for students to do. Now, all of our teachers have included on that Monday a morning meeting, so that we can touch base with all of our students and all of our families to kind of give the instruction for the day. During our planning process, and we're going to want to ask this of you a little bit later, our teachers had a conversation and decided Friday might be a better day for that planning day. So as we're going through these schedules, families, if you can wrap your mind around the possibility of Friday being the planning day, when we are open for feedback, let us know if that's a better day than Monday, because our teachers feel that if they were able to instruct students Monday through Thursday, then that asynchronous learning might be more effective at the end of a week of instruction, rather than after a weekend where they've had a couple days to rest, relax, play, and do all the kinds of things we're supposed to do on a weekend. The other aspect of assessment that we talked about was the ongoing assessment that we would do. Teachers talked about how we're going to be able to give assessments in this distance learning format, and also to discuss which of the unit tests for English language arts and math would be given when. So they started to develop that plan as well. And then finally, we started to look at what the most effective teacher to student and teacher to family feedback would be. So we know that feedback is an important aspect of learning, that in order for a student to learn, they need to have feedback from the teachers. And so we're looking at some of the most effective ways to do that. And then also, we circled back to that social emotional learning component, which we know is going to be important for our instructional program. So that's what our week of planning looked like as we built these schedules. And we feel like, once again, our teachers did an outstanding job of that. And so I'll turn it back over to Mr. Keller.
Well, I'm just here to introduce the schedules. And we want to make clear to all families that what we sent out today really are a draft. They are subject to change. The teachers really want us to emphasize that they're coming together next week to really hone in and listen to the feedback that you're going to give us tonight, if they're going to make any changes. So please, if you have seen those, get ready for some feedback and provide that to us through the chat or verbally tonight. But the teachers will be meeting together again next week, and they definitely will hone in with the folks that weren't able to be with them last week.
Excellent, Mr. Keller, thank you. And so I understand that the print as it appears on your screen is kind of small. Please know that you can access these documents also on the website under reopening plans. So if you go to pgusd.org and click on reopening plans, you will see links to these schedules so you can see them a little bit bigger than maybe what you can now. I'm going to take you down to that notes section at the bottom because one of the things that is important to note there is what these colors mean. Wherever you've seen kind of this light green color, that's where we are planning to do synchronous instruction. In other words, we'll have all students present, and then teachers will be teaching live at that time. Now that teaching might be in whole group instruction. There also might be some live instruction that's done in smaller groups while other students are doing tasks that are assigned by the teacher. And there also may be time for individual instruction as well. But I think the first thing to notice on these schedules is the increase of this synchronous teaching time where we will have our teachers teaching live and our students present. When you look at the light orange color, that is asynchronous instruction. And all that means is work that can be done without a teacher being live and present. So those are things like workbook assignments. It might also be working on one of our educational software programs, separate of direct guidance from either a teacher or a teacher's aide. When you look at the blue, those are times of the day that we've identified as possible office hours for you to check in with the teacher or for students to go to the teacher to get additional help or assistance. And then we've also identified some screen-free time in there as well. So either people will be eating lunch or taking some time to take a screen break. And that's kind of what the schedule sets up to look like. So if you look at the general week for the kindergarten students, one of your things that you're going to see is that a bulk of the instruction is going to end at noon. Whether we were going to be live face-to-face with the kindergarten students or whether we were doing distance learning, we wanted to stick to the state mandated 180 minutes of instruction. That's basically three hours. So that's what you see reflected in this schedule. All of the days are going to start with a classroom meeting. On some days, it's going to be a half an hour, Tuesday through Wednesday. On Monday, it's about a 15-minute meeting in order to explain the independent activities that are there. You're going to see SWAN via Seesaw mentioned. Seesaw is an interactive application. It's a learning management system for our younger students. It's been purchased for the kindergarten through second grades, and it's going to be an easier way for students to interact with their teachers and to show the work that they've done. It's going to be an improvement over trying to show this work through the Chromebook when maybe our students' technical skills weren't developed enough to be able to do that. The at-home kindergarten device is going to be an iPad, and we think that that is more conducive to that learning age as well. One of the things you'll also see in that orange section are activities using workbooks and manipulatives. That's just our big word for items that students can handle in order to work through these initial math concepts that they're going to be learning. We are going to have scheduled days for families to come by and pick up materials for each grade level. We understand that not all learning can occur in front of a screen, so there will be significant segments where students will be off screen working in workbooks and putting pencil to paper or using the manipulatives that they brought home from school, and also engaging in art tasks, science experiments, as well as other hands-on activities as well. As you go through the day, you see that we start off with math, and then we have a snack and screen break, and then PPE also. You're going to notice that there's a half hour of PE daily in the kindergarten schedule. Our PE teachers, Jeff Gray and Peggy Tobin, as well as their aides, Leonard West and Roberto Dixon, are going to have daily assignments available for each of the grade levels, as well as occasional live interaction with the students as well. I believe it's weekly or twice weekly that the live instruction is going to occur, but I'm trying to remember a lot right now, so I might not be 100% accurate on that. After the PE time, you'll see that English Language Arts instruction is going to start, and then ELA using Seesaw. The lunch dismissal will be from 12 to 1, and then there's going to be optional activities in the afternoon. That's where we've listed science, social studies, and art. But science, social studies, and art won't be exclusively optional through kindergarten. There will be times that those make their way into the morning in instruction as well, but they won't be in there every single day. So that's the kindergarten plan, and most of the rest of the schedules are set up in a similar fashion, only in a grade appropriate manner. So Mr. Keller, I'll let you take the first grade.
Thank you, Mr. Rugerman. As Mr. Rugerman just shared, most of the schedules are all pretty much the same. Every class will have PE, and that will continue throughout the year. And as he mentioned, PE teachers will have recorded sessions and possibly live sessions as well. So as you can see, Monday again, whether we keep Monday or whether the feedback from parents and possibly the board making a decision to switch it to Friday, regardless of that, there will be live interaction with students every single day. We really wanted to make sure that we're touching base with students on a daily basis due to social emotional impact that this time has had on every student. And you can see that on Mondays, some of these activities that will include reading and English language arts, writing and spelling, enrichment choice time, which goes throughout the week, math, library, and PE. As you go through Tuesday through Friday, you'll see they'll have their morning meeting every day. And after they take attendance, they'll get into their reading and ELA with Super Kids. Then they'll take a snack and screen break for about 15 minutes. Then they'll work on their writing and spelling in the early morning time as well. After that time, it'll fluctuate, and just so you know, from 10:45 to 12, PE times do fluctuate among the classes. So at Robert Down and Forest Grove, both Ms. Tobin and Mr. Gray will be meeting with kids, whether it's asynchronously or synchronously live, throughout the week. So not every class is going to have PE on Tuesday as it shows here. We just wanted to put that into at least one of the cells so you know. And you can also see that Mr. Macer is going to meet with the kids between 10:45 and noon as well. And his time will fluctuate depending on the class and teacher. Excuse me. Throughout all of elementary, the break for lunch will be from noon to 1. And at this moment, what we do know is that from Ms. Lip at the district office with food services, the lunches will be served at Pacific Grove High School and up near Arkwright Court at this time. Math instruction for first grade will occur after lunch, and math support will occur after that instruction. And then IXL is an online program that we have purchased for all elementary classes for this year. And that will provide opportunities for students to catch up on the concepts or standards that they're learning possibly over the weekend or at night. That's really a choice, but first graders put that in during the day and embedded it during the day here. You can also see that there may be some PE times in the late afternoon, and that first grade will get out at 2 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. As we move on to second grade, wanted to let everyone know that at second grade is when we make the shift from using a tablet for the instructional device to using the Chromebooks. So in order to start to teach our kids where the keys are on the keyboard in order to get them ready for third grade, the Chromebook is going to be the interactive device that students will be using. Once again, you can see that the synchronous instruction is going to be from 8:45 to 9:30, Tuesday through Friday. That's going to be a morning meeting and then shifting into reading and English and language arts, as well as science days on Thursday. Then there's going to be ELA work, which is asynchronous, meaning that there's going to be an assignment that students are going to work on. The second grade teachers wanted me to let you know that anytime you see that orange color, that is also a time when the second grade teachers are going to be available for office hours should a student need assistance as they're doing their English language arts work. Then there's going to be a snack and screen break from 10 to 10:30 in the middle of the morning. And then math instruction is going to begin from 10:30 until 11. There's going to be small group support and independent check-ins as needed for let's see, math as well as English language arts from 11:30 to 12. Although since that's under math, that might also be specifically for math. But there's going to be a time for some small group instruction as well as independent check-ins. You see our lunch from 12 to 1. The reason why we extended that to an hour was we wanted to make sure that any families that had to travel to the lunch distribution areas in the district had time to get back to start the 1 o'clock instruction in the afternoon. And that's also going to be some small group support and some check-ins as needed. Wanted to try to work in as much as that small group instructional time as possible, because that's also another practice that our teachers found to be very effective when we were forced into the emergency remote learning during spring. The dismissal time is off by 5 minutes. Second grade is also going to end at 2 in the afternoon. The instructional minutes required for kindergarten through second grade is 230. And so this will make sure that they get all of those instructional minutes built into the instructional day. Families, we also wanted to let you know that we feel like the instruction that is encompassed within this day is sufficient, that there really does not need to be homework assignments done outside of this instructional day. What we would encourage families to do is any kind of fun learning activities that you have built into your lifestyle. And then always, we want to encourage students and families to read together. That is what we're looking at in terms of work that can be done outside of the instructional day. Third grade.
So Mr. Rogan, I just want to clarify for kindergarten, those minutes are actually 180, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So for third grade, one thing to mention for our primary grades before we move on is that their synchronous learning all from TK all the way through second will be 135 minutes of synchronous learning. They're all consistent. And the grade levels did a great job of making that happen. And the same goes for our intermediate grades from third through fifth. All three grades have 165 synchronous minutes per day. So thank you very much to those grade level teachers for making that happen. For third grade, again, we're continuing with the Mondays with the check-in, and some of the things that may include throughout the, on Mondays would be typing.com, which is something that the third grade teams with the introduction of typing lessons like to use. Silent reading, their journal entries for reading, social studies, science, IXL, which I mentioned before, math, and ELA instruction during that time. From Tuesday through Friday, you'll see the classroom meeting again in the morning, and they'll have attendance and some math in the morning there with Swan. There'll be a snack and screen break for a half an hour. And then they'll have some ELA or English Language Arts instruction, followed up by some small group instruction as well. From 11:30 to 12, our third grade team likes to have some teacher choice based on what is needed at the time. And after our 1 hour lunch break, they will have their office hours. That actually is a typo. That really should be from 1 to 2. So we'll make that correction and get that online for families very soon. After their office hours, there'll be choice asynchronously from roughly 1 to 3, but again, there will be teacher office hours for at least an hour during that time. And the choices will be the typing.com, IXL, social studies, science, and some PE. You can see a music lesson down there on Wednesday as well. On fourth grade.
Mr. Keller, thank you. With the fourth grade schedule, you can still see that our Mondays are consistent, starting off with a morning meeting where teachers can explain what the daily routine is going to be, such as doing things like independent reading, and then an independent reading log, and then some math interaction with those online platforms that we talked about that can adjust to a student's ability level and help grow their skills using IXL and extra math, as well as some time for art on Monday as well. Also, the Mondays may include things such as social studies, a mystery science activity, the monthly book project, or a paragraph of the week. As we look at the instructional week, Tuesday through Friday, one of the things that you'll notice immediately is that the bulk of the morning is going to be set up with various levels of synchronous instruction. This synchronous instruction is not only going to include whole group instruction, but also some small group groupings as well. And so our fourth grade team has decided that it's best teaching math in the morning. So there'll be some general math instruction, as well as the opportunity for students to do some independent practice where the teachers can assess their progress. English language arts instruction is going to be after the break from 10 to 10:30. And that English language arts instruction is going to include novel studies, also the benchmark advanced units, and then also assessment as needed. From 11:30 to 12, we have some flexibility to build into the schedule so that the teachers can do an activity that they deem the most important, including doing those social emotional learning check-ins that we mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. As you look into the afternoon time, you'll see that this is mostly the asynchronous learning and activities. And this is also when students would be engaged in PE or music throughout the week too, even though it's not listed on the current schedule that I can see. But those activities are slated to happen in the afternoon from 1 to 3, which brings us to fifth grade.
Okay, I think we see the pattern going on here. Again, Mondays we'll have the class meeting, and after taking attendance, they'll go over their calendar for the week and do some review and possible asynchronous work, which would include any kind of celebrations like birthdays and what have you that might, and also other national celebrations that might be going over. And it's kind of cut off, but review some of the independent assignments that are going on as needed after 9 o'clock. So from Tuesday through Friday for fifth grade, they're going to, again, have their morning, welcome morning, and they'll have one lesson every day for at least 30 minutes synchronously. And after that, they'll be supported with asynchronous work in the workbook or possibly from IXL. After a half an hour snack and rest break, they'll come back for English language arts instruction, and with 30 minutes set aside for benchmark work and 30 minutes of asynchronous support with benchmark as well. Much like earlier, the teachers like to have choice from 11:30 to noon. And based on what's going on with the class and if students are ahead or need some support, they'll make choices throughout the week. And then you can see that with those things, it may include novel study, some social science or history, mystery science, which is science, and that'll occur later in the week. After the 1 hour lunch break, there'll be some office hours from 1 to 2. And specials, for parents that don't know, those are the rotations that we have here at elementary level. And that's PE, music, library time with our librarians, and more than likely some digital learning with Andrew Bradley, who is our digital learning teacher for the district. And those are all of our schedules.
One of the things that we wanted to talk a little bit about too, code of conduct is a little bit of a harsh term, but each of our teachers, just as they have classroom rules, are also going to have some distance learning guidelines for families to follow. We're all going to be bound by the regulations that are on the PGUSD Tech Users Agreement. And then our teachers are also going to help our students by teaching them some etiquette for distance learning. Just as all of you have your microphones muted at this time, our teachers are going to help teach our students how to do that. Just as some of you have started to raise your hands in the meeting to be called on, then our students are going to be doing that kind of thing as well. Also, one of the things that we would like for families to do is to get your students into a routine so that they know when they log into class that they're going to school. This means getting dressed just as though they were going to go to school, maybe having a workspace set aside in the home so that when they go to that space, they know that now it's time for us to be at school, so that the fun, enjoyable, enticements that are around home don't necessarily distract from the learning that the students are going to do. I know that personally, it's really helped for me to come back to school to do my work than it is to be at home. It's a lot easier for me to concentrate here than to trying to blend the two. And then finally, teachers are also going to have a chance to review this distance learning etiquette that we're going to ask of our students. So it's really in a very positive social emotional support kind of way, teaching our classes the routines and procedures that need to be in place for successful distance learning.
So we want to thank both of our counselors, Ms. Sonafrudin and Ms. Zoe Roach, and Mr. Mejia, if you could please unmute them. And Zoe and Sonda, if there's anything that I leave out, please feel free to join in and share. They did an incredible job creating a mental health action plan to support students with their social emotional learning during distance learning. So for tier 1, or basically the classroom level or basic level, we want all kids to be supported with our toolbox program, and also from the counselor toolbox core curriculum that the counselors have done a great job of getting into classrooms and presenting to classes. The student success lessons for distance learning, which will be asynchronous. They'll help out the teachers leading class meetings, and the counselor and or the teacher will help lead class caring circles, which are great opportunities for kids to share how they're feeling. For the primary grades, they'll have weekly drop-in caring circles. And also for our intermediate grades, for 3 through 5th, there'll be also drop-in caring circles for kids to participate in. And they'll also have video counselor class lessons on character traits, mind up, toolbox, resiliency, friendship, and let's talk book groups that will still occur during the year. Is there anything you'd like to add, Ms. Fruden or Ms. Roach?
No, just that I think that it really is a whole school effort. It's, I love being able to get myself virtually into the classrooms, but again, the teachers are going to be leading these class meetings and doing check-ins with students. We have Mr. Rogerman doing his mindful moments. So it really is a team effort for all of us, you know, supporting the students' mental health and social emotional learning.
And thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Roach. I have to say, Mr. Rogerman has led the way with mindful moments, and that's definitely something that I'm going to adopt in our efforts to align both schools. So thank you, Mr. Rogerman, for sharing.
Mr. Keller, I look forward to doing a couple with you. I think that would be a lot of fun. We'll be socially distanced and have our masks on, but I think that we can still pull that off and do a mindful moment.
Okay, for tier 2, we're going to have small psychoeducational groups of social skills and emotional awareness and regulation. We'll have individual student check-ins and sessions with students. And there'll definitely be parent consultations when parents ask for help. And they would like to have a new Pacific Grove Unified student online group for our new families. Is there anything to add?
One thing we did, we do each year is something called Moving and Grooving for new students. And we are going to continue to offer that. We think it's a really important part of our counseling program. That's where new students come together and get to know other new students. Once they make those connections, you know, they can reach out and we can definitely facilitate those friendships through these groups. And our individual student check-ins are our typical check-ins with students and counseling sessions for support. And then we're going to offer a few small groups, but we also want to be aware of confidentiality. So these will be skill-based groups where we teach skills, maybe stress management or mindfulness or something like that. So they're more a skill-based group, not so much some of our other types of counseling groups that we've given.
Thank you. For tier 3 or for students and families that are really facing some hardships, we definitely will continue to refer to outside resources and to continue to target intervention online, one-on-one, more than likely. Anything else to share there?
And just another way of explaining it too is the tier 1, that's kind of the whole school, and the tier 2 is some, and that's why I really pride our district on great communication with the teachers, and I encourage parents too, if you're ever concerned about your student or you've heard something that's concerning, to definitely reach out. We're always available by email. Email is best, and let us know if you have concerns. We can talk about that, and that's where we can get into more of those tier 2 and even tier 3 interventions.
And we're a resource to our parents. So we really try to have tabs on community resources outside of school. We want you to know what's out there. If we can't answer a question, we know who to call to get questions answered in terms of resources. So, you know, please reach out to us for those types of things that you're not sure about as well.
One of the other aspects that I'm really excited about are going to be the coffee with the counselors, where we're going to have virtual meetings where groups of parents can come and talk to the counselors and really kind of form their own distance learning parent support group, where you can talk about anything in terms of the challenges that we've all been facing during you know, the shelter in place and all of us having to deal with COVID-19. You know, speaking from personal experience, you know, the Rogerman household has been through its ups and downs. So we'll be very empathetic to offering whatever kind of advice that we can give, not only as educators, but also as parents, because, you know, we absolutely empathize with what you're going through.
Thank you, Mr. Rogerman. And I'll just add that as your principals and your counseling, we're a great team. All 4 of us work very close together. And I know that, at least personally, last spring, I was visiting homes because parents reached out. And don't hesitate. If you need support in any kind of way, we are here for you. So please don't be shy and let us know if you need anything. And speaking of parents, we don't want to forget your supports. So as you can see here at the top, for any new parents that are online with us right now, we'll have a new Peninsula parent group. they want to have a kindergarten family parent group. As Mr. Rogaman mentioned, the drop-in virtual coffee with the counselors will be including with a primary group and an intermediate group. There'll be parent education Zoom workshops in conjunction with the adult school to include home scheduling, anxiety, and our toolbox program. And there'll also be individual parent consultations. Anything to add?
That's fine.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think the topics of presentations is definitely what we'll be reaching out and trying to get feedback from the community as we go through this whole year. What would really support them?
Yeah, and parents, if you have any topics you would like us to share this year, please share either in the chat room or just verbally let us know. Raise your hand and let us know tonight. And it is time for that. It is time for questions and feedback. We are here for you, and we definitely want to hear from you. So we are going to go in order as the hands were raised. So please be patient. And we have put aside time up through 8 o'clock for questions and feedback tonight.
Great, and I'm going to try to help manage that as much as I can. And so the first person that we have with her hand up is Tina Tavares. Tina.
Hi, everyone.
Good
I
evening.
just have a question regarding families with multiple children. I noticed since the schedule came out that every grade level is going to have live instruction at the same time in the morning. So I just feel like it may be a little bit of a struggle if both small children need some sort of assistance from a parent during that live meeting or need attention, and there's only one adult in the home that can help manage that. I just foresee that being a little bit of a challenge, especially in the beginning.
Tina, that's really good for us to know. And well, one of the things I know about our teaching staff is that there's going to be an adjustment period for everyone. And what we're hoping is that by having the routine similar day by day, that similar routine is going to help to breed at least a little bit of independence in the slightly older learners, so that the bulk of your attention can be spent with the littlest of your learners. You know, I understand it's going to be a challenge for that kindergarten and first grade group, which is why we've made the shift to using an iPad and a tablet in those lower grades. We're hoping that that's going to assist with the getting up and running portion of the day, and then our teachers are going to plan those activities that hopefully are going to keep the students engaged. But that was the part of our planning that hopefully addressed somewhat the issue that you brought up.
Okay.
I think the next person is Heloise.
Hi there. I'm Eloisa Junqueira. I have a second grader. And my question is, what's going to happen in terms of testing? You know, what are the plans for testing? And also for the children that have 504 plans and individual educational plans, what are the plans for meeting with those parents, you know, within the next few days before school starts to readjust their kids' plans to the new model?
Well,
Go
ahead.
Mr. Keller, take it.
Well, at least, Eloisa, since you're one of my parents, 504 meetings will occur. And I'm not sure if Ms. Rudin or Ms. Roach want to discuss that at all, but they will occur virtually. That's been established for sure through Director Davies in our student, she's our student, special student needs director. For testing, are you specifically discussing for special education students, or are you discussing what we talked about for learning loss with kind of a broad assessment that we're going to use for all students?
No, yeah, I wanted to find out about, the planning for the regular testing throughout the year and towards the end of the year, the state testing and all that stuff.
Oh.
If there's any.
Yes, sorry, we haven't heard from the state just yet about the testing through the state, the CASP or the, of course, I'm blanking right now. But
Mr. Keller, I think I can help a little bit. Yeah, we haven't heard yet about the CASP testing for grades 3 through 5. I think that most of the school districts in the state are going to request that those tests get waived again this year, just because the circumstances, once again, are going to be quite different than what we normally would have for our regular instruction. In terms of the LPAC testing, which is the English Language Arts Proficiency Assessments of California, I do think that they are coming up with a virtual manner to assess students using the LPAC. So our English proficiency testing will go forward. In terms of our local testing, one of the things that we've decided as a district to do is to push back our fall interim formative assessment as well as our spring interim formative assessment, so that we can match the pacing guides that our teachers have built. So we'll still do like our local district testing, but we're going to move those tests back until our teachers have had time to teach the content. In terms of the delivery of the services for students that are on an IEP, that is still going to occur, and those services are going to occur in a virtual manner. So that specialized academic instruction will occur, as will services such as speech. It's just that it's going to be done in a virtual format similar to this meeting. Okay?
And I'll add that I'm a 504 coordinator at Robert Down, and I have my list of students that there's an expectation of a meeting at the beginning of the school year, and I'm going to be scheduling those in the next couple of days and early next week. Just wanted to get through a few of these big meetings this week, but they are on my list, at the top of my list, to touch base with parents and address any concerns on those 504 plans.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fruden. Our next question.
I was going to say, every student at Forest Grove that's on a 504 at the beginning of the year, I'll meet with the teacher, and we can go through those accommodations with a special eye for distance learning, and if there might be any additional challenges implementing them. And then at that point, we'll continue on with any meetings when they come due throughout the year.
I think one of the things that becomes very clear is that we do work as a team, both at Forest Grove and Robert Down. Thank you for those contributions, counselors. Next is Zoe Schultz.
Hey there. I first of all want to say thank you to the district administrators and all the teachers for putting together what looks to be a very comprehensive plan for this coming school year. I'm really excited to get started on it. I do have a couple questions. I have a first grader. First of all, I'd like to say that I would support the teachers and also think it's beneficial for, at least in my case, to have the prep day be on Friday. That was one statement. And then question about the Seesaw platform for the primary grades. Used Seesaw last year and really found some benefit from it. Just wanted to make sure, because I saw the schedule, the schedules I'm sure were compiled by different people, but it wasn't clear that that was going to be the platform for all subjects for the primary grades. And then lastly, wanted to make sure that there were going to be some sort of a teacher drop-ins for all of the grades. I don't know if that's going to be a daily basis or a weekly basis, but one thing I found really beneficial in conducting my distance learning last year was to be able to learn from the teacher how to best teach a lot of the subjects. You know, since we're doing a lot of asynchronous learning, a lot of times when you're viewing the teacher giving those lessons, you pick up as a parent some of those teaching techniques that can allow you to better provide asynchronous learning for your student. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. I think that the Seesaw is, well, that we've purchased it, and it is going to be used for all subjects in those primary grades, K through 2. The district has a training arranged in that PD week, August 3rd through 7th. So there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve with our teachers, but they're really invested just because of the positive feedback that we've gotten from our teachers who have used Seesaw, as well as our parents that have. And yes, all of our teachers will have office hours or those drop-ins like you mentioned. The other aspect of parent support is that we will have parent nights where we will assist parents in teaching their children how to log in, and just kind of the ins and outs of using the technology that we're going to use for the instruction. But what I love that you're saying that I'm hearing is that it's also helpful for us to, spend some time with parents in those drop-in sessions, teaching how we teach the material so parents have the ability to pick up on the methods that we're using. Thank you for that. Next is Mira Park.
Thank you, Mr. Rogelman and Mr. Keller and administrators and the staff of the school district. It's been really challenging going through all this, but I'm glad we're going through this as a group. I have some feedback and some questions. I have a second grader, and I know for the first grader, first grade, as you mentioned, it was emergency learning. And some of the things that I found really challenging was the way a lot of the learning material was online. So we were hopping from website to website, learning different topics. It was a little scattered, so there wasn't a continuity that was easy for parents to follow or for the children to follow. So my question is, so I have two questions, one surrounding that. Will you or will the district be providing some sort of hard copy material that we can have for our children and earmark specific pages? Because as we all know, doing the online learning, it's only good for so much, but having an actual physical paper and a book that you mark and do 5 pages. When you're done with that, go do your math game online, do another 5 pages of reading, and going so forth in that way makes it a lot easier to plan, but I think it makes it a more richer environment for our kids to learn. So that's one question, just the materials that's going to be provided and how the online portion is going to interface with the actual pen and paper hard copy stuff. The other question is, will attendance and turning in material be assessed in terms of our kids learning and moving on to the next grade? As you mentioned, the sort of standardized assessment is going to be different now, but I want to know what I need to do to make sure that my son is learning enough and will be able to maybe move to the next grade, and if I'm not making it there, and how to close that gap. Those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Well, we definitely will have hard copies available. I know we did this at Robert Down quite a bit with materials being available every single day at the top of our stairs. Mr. Rogelman can talk about what they practice at Forest Grove, but those items will be available, and our teachers they really did talk last week about the concerns that parents had with screen time. So we want to have some offline asynchronous learning occurring through workbooks and other worksheets that teachers will provide, for sure.
In Ms. Park, I think that one of the things that we've tried to do is align throughout the grade level so that the second grade pickup is going to be on a fairly routine basis, so that you'll have that hard copy of the material in your hands. So both sites are going to arrange for that to happen. At Forest Grove, it'll probably be similar to how we picked up the materials on the last day of school last year, that we'll have drive-through pickup for those materials, as well as drive-through drop-off grade level by grade level and class by class. And I think the other question had to do with attendance and also assessment. So Mr. Keller.
Well, we will have ongoing assessments. This is partially how IXL will help families as well, because IXL has an ongoing diagnostic throughout the year. It's not just a one-time test or take it 4 times. It is an opportunity for families to understand exactly where their students are and for teachers to know where the students are with their skills. So IXL is one way that we will be working with that. Mr. Rogerman mentioned the IFAs, or interim formative assessments, that we have already been using in our district. Those will be pretty much through every trimester that those will be provided. But I know our staff, and their pacing is covering the standards. So you'll know if your student is ready to go on to the next grade.
Mr. Keller, thanks. One of the things that's important too to note is that attendance is going to be taken daily, and it'll be taken at that morning meeting. The district is going to come out soon with a frequently asked questions document that's going to outline specifics with regard to that. And then when our teachers are assigning grades, one of the things that they always do is look at multiple measures of assessment. So it's going to be a combination of looking at the work that the student produces as part of the assignments that are generated in the class, as well as the unit tests that the students are taking. And then as well as the experience that teachers have using rubrics to, grade things such as reading fluency and reading comprehension to see if students are at standard with where we are in the year for the grade level. So unlike the emergency remote learning, where we basically held students harmless and said that they could not do any worse than that second trimester grade, here students will be getting graded just like we always have. We're going to use our same standards-based report card, and our teachers are going to use those multiple inputs of data to come up with the best assessment of where each child is using the distance learning assignments that we have. Okay. Next up is Benjamin Roth.
Thank you. I had to mute because my family is talking behind me.
That's okay.
I want to repeat what everybody else has said. Thank you all so much. You've done a really great job of working through all this difficulty, and I'm very impressed with the schedule. I love the schedule. But my question is there, what is the classroom teacher assignment going to look like? I would love it if we could maybe reassign the kids to the same class group that they were with last year. Since they know those kids, they might have a better rapport, just something a little bit more familiar for the coming year. That's my question.
Well, thank you very much. You know what, we haven't officially distributed the class list to our teachers yet, partially because we wanted to have this meeting and get the input. As you can imagine, the class list building is kind of challenging now because we built class lists last spring based on the common assumption that we have that the school year was going to start up and we'd be back into, at the very least, a hybrid model. With that not being the case, and with the district sending out a survey that talked about a preference between going to hybrid learning or distance learning only, I believe that it was about 35% of Robert Down parents and about 39% of Forest Grove families were choosing distance learning only as an option that way too. So really, Mr. Keller and I have two choices that we need to make, and you just gave us a third. Okay, so the two that we had to make was stick with the original assignments that we had in spring, and then should we go into a hybrid model, we'd have to identify a distance learning only teacher per grade level, and then disperse the students from 3 classes into 2, or from 4 classes into 3 that were remaining. The other choice that we had was to try to do that dispersion now, based on the information that we have. In order for us to do that, we would need to identify a distance learning only teacher per grade level. What that also might necessitate is some shuffling of teachers in each grade level in order for us to fulfill the personnel needs. We decided that that is better for us to wait until later in the year if we are actually forced back into a hybrid model. Well, not forced. If we have that option to go back into a hybrid model and the school board decides that that's the path that we should take. We decided at that time would be better to tackle all those issues rather than to disrupt the staffing that we have right now. The third option is one that we can look at, and that's the one that you gave us. Where that becomes a little bit of a challenge is if there are different numbers of teachers in a current grade than in the previous grade. So if in the previous grade there were 3 teachers and there's going to be 4, then that would present a challenge. Although I believe that both Mr. Keller and I moved teachers based on the population bubbles in our school. I feel like I'm getting into the weeds on this when the answer is that we've got a really difficult decision to make. I will let everyone know that the original decision that we had planned on doing was sticking with those assignments that we had during springtime. But I will say that Mr. Keller and I made a vow to be open tonight. And so you aren't the only person that has made that request. And so it may be something that we can talk about. Okay?
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Ms. Roth.
I have Julie Mellon next, and I hope I've unmuted you. Oh, there we go.
No, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so you just touched on it a little bit there, but my question was about what would, if there's been any word on what would happen after October, and if we would have the option to stay on full distance learning rather than going to the hybrid system.
Yes, we'll honor those choices. You know, we were ready to move forward and to make it very clear to families. We did come out at one point with the survey saying that only specific students that had a medical release could be on distance learning. But we have since, you know, really looked at the language in the law. And basically, if you as a family feel that your student is at risk at any time this year, and who knows how long this will take, but I believe I am speaking on behalf of the district that you can continue distance learning even if we return to campus at any point in time this year.
Okay, great, thank you.
Distance learning will be an option throughout the year. I think an item that's related to that is when will families have that opportunity to choose. And the board is going to draft policy around that. So I don't have that information right now as to when those opt-in and opt-out times will be. Okay?
Mr. Rogeman, if I may.
Yes, absolutely, Dr. Forrest. Welcome.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us this evening, and welcome to all the families. I just wanted to chime in that we're going to be watching very closely what the State Superintendent of Public Instruction recommends to the governor on this matter. At this point in time, certainly, we are anticipating the possibility and the option of allowing parents who need it or require it to continue into distance learning with the caveats that the state lays out. I do want to lay out, though, we are restricted by whatever ultimately the state, the governor, and the Department of Education dictate to us. So we'll be watching that very carefully. We will be continuing with Friday updates every week, and as we used to do. And if anything changes, we'll certainly keep you posted well ahead of time.
Thank you, Dr. Porras. Our next speaker is Z. Smith.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity. I wanted to ask sort of to piggyback with regard to the class lists, when you would know definitively when they would be published. And I say that only because I do think the sooner the better with regard to parents having the opportunity to connect with other parents, for the kids to have something to look forward to know that who's going to be in their class. I think that they've gone through so much already, and not knowing or having any idea who's going to be in their class. I don't think this is the year to like wait on that. I definitely feel like the sooner the better. But with regard, I did have a question with regard to the training and the online training that was given in June, and you mentioned 30 staff members attended. So that implies that not all the staff members did attend. And I wanted to ask, with regard to consistency with the staff, will it be that, you know, some of the teachers will be very informed and some will be catching up? And will, you know, across the grade levels, will there be consistency where you'll feel like no matter what teacher you will have the same experience?
Thank you. Thank you for those questions. I think the first one also came up in our planning meetings, and our teachers were aligned in their thinking with you that this is not the year for us to post the list on the wall the day before school starts. Our teachers are going to find out the class list first, And we're hoping to meet a timeline of the next couple of days for us to get class lists to our teachers, which means that parents can look for sometime next week to receive those class lists. I believe that when we were doing our planning sessions, that the date we thought would be appropriate would be, oh, Mr. Keller, I'm going to kind of state the date right now, aren't I? Yeah. You know what? I really want to hold off on saying the specific date so I don't give out the wrong one. I
Go
need to
for it,
go back
Buck.
with the teachers, but it'll be next week as opposed to like the couple of days before school starts. Okay, does that,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's a broad timeline, and from the parent point of view, the sooner the better.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And what was the second question? I'm sorry.
With regard to
Consistency in
consistency.
training.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Mr. Keller, how about if you speak to that with kind of the planning process that we went through?
Yeah, thank you, Z, for asking that. That's the expectation of our staff this year. We didn't go in and pay staff to attend the virtual teaching academy and to have them create all those plans that they created last week to have someone basically, go rogue. We want people to be on the same page as much as possible. We don't expect them to be exactly lockstep. There may be a page or two here difference, which happens in every single school and around the country and around the world. But we do expect our teachers to collaborate every single week, and we expect them to follow suit within the grade level. And those that did not attend will be having to catch up just a little bit, possibly. But we know we have incredible teachers and educators within our district. So look forward to having the grade levels be aligned.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank
Keller,
you.
I think that I would add too is that one of the things that the school board has done for us, and the PGTTA really worked well with us on, is that we've added 4 days for training and planning to the start of the school year. And we're really counting heavily on those 4 days, which is going to represent basically another 24 hours of planning and training for us to get that kind of alignment that we've talked about. What was great was the enthusiasm that we saw from our teaching staff as they were planning and doing the alignment and working together, which is why it's so important for us to have this planning day, whether it be on Monday or Friday, because that is what's going to keep our classrooms aligned. Those weekly check-ins with our colleagues at Robert Down, working across the grade level and building on this incredible momentum that we've done to pull something really positive out of such a negative situation, truly could be one of the greatest things and one of the finest moments that comes out of this situation for our schools. So it's hard for me to hide my enthusiasm about that, but that's one of the ways that we're going to try to maintain that alignment.
I just wanted to add with regard to the days, my vote is for the Monday only because there are so many holidays on Mondays, which I thought was the interest as far as why that would be the planning day. And if you are going to align yourself with the middle school and the high school, I'm pretty sure that that's a planning day on the Monday. So you'd have a disjointed situation if you have families that are in, with siblings that are in different grades.
I hear you about the alignment. There are 3 Monday holidays in the school year and 1 Friday. So, I always feel that same way, right? You always feel like, well, the holiday always falls on a Monday, but I think there's 3 of them. There's Labor Day, there's Martin Luther King Day, and there's Memorial Day toward the end of the school year. And the Friday holiday is the Thanksgiving one. If I sound like I know a little too much about this, it's because I've served on the calendar committee for the last 12 years. And I'm at risk at saying that publicly because I know that that's not always a popular thing either, but there's some information for you. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Our next speaker is Stephanie.
Good evening, this is Stephanie Cooper. Can you hear me?
Yes, Stephanie, we sure can.
Wonderful. So thank you very, very much, first of all, to everyone who has been working very hard this summer. I can empathize as an educator who's been also training. I have a 4th grader, and I have a couple questions. Going back to, us being eager to know the makeup of the classes and, probably in mind thinking, how can we help each other? How can we support one another? I can imagine that, if this is a brand new class or whoever, it will be probably hard to break down the barriers for the students to get to know each other. So I was wondering if we could hear anyone, even a teacher, expand on maybe what kind of community building things you have in mind to help kids know their classmates better. And I know you can do that throughout instruction, but I think that might be a little limited this time around. And, building a community in a classroom, that is huge, and that will be even harder. My second question, if I may, would be, will your teachers be on campus to teach remotely from their classrooms? And I'm asking that not just out of curiosity, but kind of thinking, will they be in their, environment using their favorite things in their classrooms and things like that, or will they have to, stay in their home offices? Thank you.
Stephanie, thank you for both of those questions. One of the things I know our teachers talked about were those kinds of activities for students to get to know each other. Also, our teachers went very light on the pacing guides when they were planning those first 3 days of school, because they understand that the bulk of that time in those first 3 days of school are going to be needed to begin to build those bonds among the classmates that we normally do when we're face to face. That's even more of a challenge when we're doing it distance learning. So they did carve out the time, especially in the first 3 days of school, to establish celebrations, routines within the classroom, and activities for the students to get to know each other. As far as teaching on campus, we will encourage our teachers to teach on campus. However, teachers will have the opportunity to teach at home. As part of COVID-19 addressing the distance learning and the hybrid learning models that we have, the district has negotiated a memorandum of understanding with our teachers. And in that memorandum of understanding, there are certain requirements that teachers have to meet in order to teach at home, such as having the technical capacity to teach like the broadband that's necessary, as well as making sure that there's a professional setting at home. So, I have tremendous respect for our teachers, but if someone isn't living up to the level of professionalism that they need to, one of the things that's written into that memorandum of understanding is that a teacher can be required to teach back from their classroom. Personally, I don't think that's going to occur for our teachers that are wound up teaching remotely, but there is that safeguard built in that if someone isn't up to those standards, that they can be required to teach from campus. Does that answer the question?
Sure, it does. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great to see you.
If I might just add that we do have teachers that much like yourself, have children, and they're facing situations, having to take care of their children as well. So we're trying to see what we can do to help those teachers out. But if you have your hand up and your question has been answered, if you don't mind taking it down, just so we know who really needs to ask their question in the queue. Thank you.
Next up, we have Christy. Oh, sorry, Christy. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Rogman. First, I just wanted to take a quick second to thank all of the staff and, everyone involved in making sure that we have our children educated this fall. It's really a creative and high energy task. So I appreciate everyone involved in it. My first question was, and this is in thinking of parents that are working, parents that might be by themselves, trying to school their children while working from home, and other situations that different families are facing. So I'm thinking about how we're going to handle, situations like with maybe students not being able to do their work or finish their work when it's expected of them due to the conditions at home. So that's one question. And then my next question is, how are we addressing equity issues, especially issues of accessibility, like internet and technology? Does the school this time around have enough computers, iPads, Chromebooks, and how are those going to be distributed, I guess? Thank you.
Thank you. I think I can answer a couple of those. As far as students that are not able to finish work, that would be the ideal thing to talk to a teacher about in office hours. The experience that I've had with our teachers at Forest Grove, I personally know a lot of the teachers at Robert Down as well, is our teachers really want the education to work for the families and for the students. So I think that an accommodation can be made for those assignments where a student might be late or might not be able to finish work. Where this normally comes into conversation with us has to do with homework, where maybe students were so frustrated doing homework that it was leading to tears and things of that nature. And we don't want to turn school into something that's miserable for our children. And so I think our staff would be pretty flexible about working with parents to extend the deadline for work coming in. As far as equity issues and accessibility, the district sent out, the survey that was asking parents to state what their needs would be in terms of tech. We sent it out not only by email, but also by text. So if a parent had a smartphone, that they would be able to say what kind of tech that they needed. Our tech team has already put out a spreadsheet that has our family members listed by name, as well as the need that they have. And that means that we have a list of our families that will need a Wi-Fi hotspot, as well as the appropriate device for students to learn. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to handle equity issues in terms of access.
And I am just going to add to that, sorry to interrupt, but that we do have enough in terms of Chromebook devices to support both elementaries, the middle school, and the high school, should it be needed.
Thank you, Mr. Mejia. That's very helpful. Next, we have Laura Arroyo.
Hi, our son is currently enrolled for transitional kindergarten at Forest Grove, and I'm just curious to know, should we opt out of the virtual and hybrid, so basically the first half of the school year? Would there be any issue, and would we have then the option to, if we needed to, re-register or enroll him for the second half of the school year, if we are then allowed to return to the classroom?
Excellent question. The only requirement that you need to meet in order for a student to be enrolled in the TK program at our school is that their 5th birthday falls between September 2nd and December 2nd. As long as your child falls within those dates, your child can enroll in school anytime throughout the year. The transitional kindergarten program is a voluntary one. It's not a mandatory program. So your child wouldn't be subject to the compulsory education law that would apply to like 1st through 5th graders. Yes, if you would like to opt out of the distance learning, you have the ability to do that. If we went back to face-to-face, you would have the ability to re-enroll your child so that they could be in the transitional kindergarten program. Okay?
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Marissa Boynes, you're next.
Yeah. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, so my question was, sorry.
Like,
okay, sorry about that. My question was if we are doing a partnered distance learning with another classmate in the same grade, are we going to be able to request that they're placed in the same class so that their curriculum is mirrored?
Mr. Keller.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, we are wholeheartedly moving forward with grade levels working together closely, collaborating every single week. So what you're asking for really isn't an issue. I've had people email me already the same question with specific requests. And again, I don't want to speak for Mr. Rogerman, but I'll just say my policy at Robert Down for placements, because our staff do work really, really hard with their placements. And if we do move forward with the placements that were made in the spring, I always ask parents, give it 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, if you're not satisfied, then we can sit down and definitely, well, not sit down, but virtually sit down and have a conversation. You know, if it's not working out, I think staff do understand. I've had a couple requests come in where I've discussed with staff, because again, I don't want to go behind their back and I don't want to negate their decisions that they made in the spring. So we will keep the communication open, and I'm not sure if Mr. Rogerman wants to state what his policy is at Forest Grove, but for me, it would be after 2 weeks.
I think we're very much aligned that way, is that we don't make placements based on friendships. And if there are requests, you know, you're more than welcome to send them along. Just we can't guarantee that we can grant them. Placement is just way too tricky of an item. Folks, we have a couple dozen people with their hands up, and I want to make sure that we get through questions. So what I would like you to do is, if you can, please ask a single question so that those folks that have their hands up have the opportunity to ask them. So next on our list is Kelly Sanfilippo.
Oh, Mr. Rogerman, I had a
Hello,
whole
Kelly.
list, and now now I have to narrow it down, huh?
You ask us the most pressing question.
The most pressing. Not so much question, but just maybe a comment to or something to consider. Looking at the schedule for the day, the morning break from the 10 to 10:30 seems long to me, especially when there's no break between 10:30 and 12 for students. And so I don't know if it's maybe something to think about, maybe shortening that and adding a small break between like that morning recess and lunchtime, so to speak. Another concern, well, another question I have, as far as like the small group work, and it says that they'll break out into small groups. Is that supervised, or is that a group of kids being put into a chat room to do work together? And then the after lunch period is, I see a mix of live and independent work. I'm just thinking of my children. How are they going to be engaged face-to-face? Will there be face-to-face engagement with PE and music and the tech? I'm assuming that the technology that they'll be learning, there will be face-to-face if they're learning a new or practicing a digital literacy platform. And something that I really felt worked really well last year with my oldest in 4th grade was having an assigned group with a day and a time each week that they would check in together. And I don't know if that's something that can happen at the end of the day to sort of as a, how did the day go? Rather than just kind of turning them, you know, loose at the end of the day.
Right. Thank you, Kelly. There's a couple things. One is the teachers are going to be able to give their classes breaks if they sense that the students need and additional breaks. So they have that ability, you know, to veer from the instructional schedule as they see fit and they see necessary. The reason why we're giving the extended break from 10 to 10:30 is we really feel like the students need a chance to step away from the screen and the intensity of instruction. You know, when you're live and in class, there's still those opportunities to move around within the classroom that maybe we don't have when we're online. And so that's the reason why we have that extended break, as well as to give the students eyes a rest. Any of the small group breakout sessions will absolutely be attended and structured with an adult. It will either be the teacher or one of the instructional assistants that are on campus. Our teachers are really good about setting routines and schedules. So while I can't guarantee that they'll have the same group and the same organized routine every time, knowing how our teachers are, I think is very likely.
Can I just add one more? So will parents have links and access to all the platforms that the teachers will be using? Or is that just going to be through the students' email account and their passwords?
So one of the things that our teachers have done is that they've agreed in what a common Google Classroom layout is going to look like. So it's going to be similar from grade level to grade level. And part of that Google Classroom splash page is going to have links to the apps that the teachers are using with the students.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, next we have Lucy Hazen.
Hi, sorry, this is Elliot. I'm hiding under my wife's name, but I want to start with what other folks have said. Thank you for all the huge monumental efforts to get here. I'm parent of a 1st and 5th grader rising, the 1st grader who liked to stick his eye in the camera, and a 5th grader who really excelled by kind of making her own schedule. So my main question or point is, what plans for flexibility are there opportunities for a student that's just not doing well with the screen time to do some offline work during some of those synchronous times, as long as I make those in-person connections, you know, understandably 1 a day. And the further point on that flexibility is the thought about internet outages. We're not going to have technology that works 100% of the time. So if the internet goes down for the teacher, for example, will there be, you know, a separate kind of learning study that could be kind of easily plugged in? And just the last point on that flexibility, another example is, you know, can we sub in 30 minutes of a bike ride for a formal PE video class? Because again, getting my kids off the screen is one of my fights every day. So I'd like to have some help with that. Thank you.
Well, the PE teachers did discuss together about providing a log. That's something that Mrs. Tobin would need to adopt from Mr. Gray at Forest Grove, and I know they would like to work together. So I think that taking a bike ride, Elliot, is definitely an option for you. For the outages situation, I think we'll have to really hone in. That's something, I'll be honest with you, we didn't discuss this last week. But thank you for placing that seed. I think we definitely need to get prepared for that. That'll be interesting if that occurs, how we're going to have distance learning. But I think we'll have some backup plans ready when the time comes. And I think for the plans for flexibility, again, we haven't had all the teachers back into either a Google Meet or a Zoom meeting to get some feedback on how they feel about recording their sessions. Last week, the teachers that were present did discuss this a little bit, but we do have to work with PG Tech, Mr. Mejia and Mr. Binder, to see what we can afford as a district. A lot of equipment right now, as you can imagine, is just not available. And some of the tech that we've already purchased isn't coming until October. So I would hope that we could, if you communicate with your teacher and you really would like to have recorded sessions, that the teacher can find a way to get that done. And if we can't, then we'll see if we can get the right tech as soon as we can to have it done.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Jeannie Trebeck, you are next.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we sure can.
Okay, fantastic. I just want to thank you guys and ladies for doing a fantastic job yet again. I know you have a Herculean task before you of trying to meet the needs of multiple families from all different spectrums and needs and wants. I just one, I guess my main question, and then maybe a comment, which is sort of cheating, but I'm going to do it, is that I am concerned, or question would be about the quality of time that is spent on the screen. It seems that there's instructional minutes that have been laid out with the asynchronistic versus synchronistic, but it seems unclear how much of that is still then spent on the screen if the teacher is not teaching to them. I think that would help me as a parent to be able to winnow down exactly how much time my children would be spent staring at the screens. And then even with that, a distinction between whole group versus large group instruction. I have found, at least for my kids, that a teacher teaching an entire class of however many children on a screen is far less engaging than them being in a class of 4. Like the Wave Riders program did a fantastic job of doing this. Actually, I was super impressed with those kids, and they like fully had my kid engaged for an hour and a half in a very appropriate, interactive sort of way. So shout out to those awesome other kids in our middle and I think it was high schoolers who did that. Anyways, so that would just help me to make it succinct, is just what's the quality of time going to look like on the screen.
Jeannie, can I brag for just a moment?
I know, when your daughter was one of them.
Yeah, she's one of the writer instructors. And so I'm going to go home and give her a big hug and a high five and say,
yeah,
Graybeck said that they did a great job. Okay, thank you for that.
They did. Yeah, it was fantastic. And then the comment I would just make is just, I feel like this plan that is currently on the table will probably work for a lot of families who are looking for the still traditional model of schooling. But I think there's still a large cohort of us parents who realize and want to have an active participation in our kids' experience. And we know that them learning from a screen is not going to be as effective as sitting next to them and teaching them, as well as the flexibility of our schedules, because we have 2 children or more who are trying to wrestle at the same time. So I would just love for the district to adopt some kind of flexible online plan that enables the pacing guides that you guys have already put in place, but equips the teacher to meet with parents. And then the parents are the ones taking attendance, making sure their kids get the work done, and occasionally meeting with the teacher to back up and support the things that they as parents don't understand, because we didn't do core math when we were kids. I just think that would be incredible, and a resource that I feel like our district, and I hope our board, could get behind, given how small and intimate we are and how much parent support we have. So I just think that's something that we should really give some time and energy to. That's it. Thank you.
Jeannie, thank you for that message. I know that Dr. Porras is here, as well as our other board members. So I think that message is heard. You also talked about how much time is spent on screen. I think that as the program gets implemented, we're going to have a better idea of just the extent of how much it is. However, that is one of those items that we're going to want parent feedback on, and our teachers can make adjustments to the program based on that feedback, and try to serve the largest number of students and families that we can based on the feedback that we're getting. Our teachers are very aware of the importance of having activities that are other than just screen time. And so I know that they'll take that into account when they are doing their planning for the year. Next up is Anastasia.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay. So I guess my biggest question would be, is there going to be any type of meet and greet on a personal level for, say, my kindergartner who, hasn't really been in a classroom setting of any kind? Is she going to be able to have that opportunity to, and for the teacher to have the opportunity to get to know the children on a more, I guess it would be considered somewhat personal level, so that she can, or he can, just know each child independently, as opposed to just across the board, there's these kids on a screen, if that makes sense.
It sure does. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we're facing with distance learning in general. How do we meet, make welcome, and begin to establish a quality relationship with our youngest learners that are coming to our school for the very, very first time? I know that in the brainstorming sessions when we were doing with planning, our teachers began talking about this as well. And at that kindergarten level, we thought that maybe the materials distribution time might be an opportunity for us to have at least a little bit of personal interaction with our students. I know that we've got, face masks that are clear that we can have staff wear during that period. So at least our students get a chance to see our faces and also maybe have just a quick interaction from a socially distant appropriate space. But that's a challenge. And that's one thing that, I'm going to leave in the hands of our experts, which are the kindergarten teachers, to be able to address. As far as a meet and greet, I know that our teachers are planning on doing some form of a virtual meet and greet. That'll become more definite during that PD and prep week that we're busy putting together now. Okay. All right. Kristen Raven is next.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, I just wanted again to say thank you to everyone. It's been incredible seeing all this come together. And I had a question, and I can, I'll take my answer off the air, but I wanted to know if there was, what's the best way to connect with other families who may be struggling to find childcare for their students working at home, for those of us who have the ability to be home, to maybe connect with one family or two to help support them in a small, safe bubble as we learn together.
I know both of our, well, help me, Buck. I know Robert Down has a Facebook page for our PTA. Are you a Forest Grove or Robert Down parent? Or
I'm Forest Grove.
Okay. But you know what? I think just as the schools are aligning, I think our parents need to align too. You know, we have a street that splits the boundaries, and just because you live on one side of Cynics doesn't mean you don't have to be friends with the Forest Grove Falcons across the street if you're a Robert Down Otter. So check out the Facebook pages for both PTAs. I know I would love to help in this endeavor. As my bosses know and Mr. Rogeman knows, I really would love to try to help with childcare as best we can. I'd like to align with parents to see how we can help you. So I think that's a starting point. But I'm willing to work with PTAs to try to get this done.
That's a great resource. Thank you.
And absolutely, we would like to join that effort. Nicole Ortel.
Hi, thank you. Piggybacking off of what Jeannie Trebek asked, I wanted to know, because I am interested in taking a really active role in my daughter's education, and I would prefer more of an independent study option versus a distance learning option, which I haven't seen presented. My question is, would we have access to teacher guides and kind of the other side of the curriculum that they get to see and that helps enable them to teach that curriculum?
Nicole, I think I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Porras at this point, because I think the program that you describe and that Jeannie does as well is starting to kind of cross over into that realm of home schooling. And I know that if that's the approach a family wants to take, that there's a formal process there. Dr. Porras, like how much assistance is a school allowed to give while turning over the bulk of instruction over to a parent? I know that there are legal issues with our teachers being the ones who are legally responsible for assigning grades, and that might limit their ability to do something of that nature. But if you have a moment to speak to that just a little bit, because this is our second question on that.
Sure. Let me make sure. Oh, I'm off. Happy to answer that, Mr. Rogeman. A couple of thoughts that come to mind. Absolutely. I think we have to be a little bit careful how much we tread into the homeschooling independent study realm. There is an independent study program that's offered through North Monterey County Unified School District, which parents can partake in. They have their own attendance regulations and assessment regulations. And so by joining that program, you disenroll from our district and enroll to that district. And the responsibility then falls to that school district for those assessments and attendance. So we have to be very cautious as a district going into that field, because we're bound by education code to make sure that we are regulating how we take attendance, when we do, how the assessment takes place, and how we regulate that assessment. And as we go too far down the homeschooling route, we no longer have sort of ownership of that. And that would kind of go beyond our bounds. So that's a little bit tricky. Certainly, I think if folks want to consider a homeschooling option, there are homeschooling options that are out there that they can pursue, and we can certainly answer some of those offline. And I think in regards to looking at some of the texts that the teachers are using, I would certainly just talk with your teacher, classroom teacher, and ask them if there's some assistance that they can give in that regards. Many of those textbooks are actually online, and the teacher formats are online too. So something we can probably help a little bit with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not interested in homeschooling. I want to stay with the district, and I know that there are other districts like Clovis, for instance, who offer an option more similar to this. And so I just would hope that, you know, the curriculum director could offer that, you know, level of guidance to us with like I said, teacher guides and really guidance on how to teach, because that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be teaching our kids for the most part. I mean, the teachers will definitely be a part of that process, but we're going to be with them, next to them, walking them through every single step of this. And it's really important that we have the tools to be able to be successful in that.
Sure, we can look a little into what that might look like. And just as a note, I did have a chance to contact some of the folks at Clovis just a little bit earlier before this call. Their program is aligned with an online curriculum that's paid for separately. It's a fairly extensive online curriculum. And they also have a teacher that is devoted just to the distance learning. And so that monitors and supports those students. To make that work for us, we would literally need to hire a couple more teachers to make that happen. And even then still pay for the Edmentum, I think it's called, that the Clovis is using. So their setup was initially designed around the hybrid program, and they're just developing it for the distance learning. But in regards to your earlier point, sure, we can definitely take a look at what we can provide for our teachers to give you all support at home.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Forrest. Our next speaker is Carolyn Swanson.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I am Carolyn Swanson. So I reviewed the distance learning recommendations made by parents at our task force meetings. And I have to say, I'm unclear how these schedules address the concerns and the recommendations. At first, when I reviewed the schedules, I kind of felt like you guys, you put a lot of time into almost like building a car and didn't ask what type of fuel it would use. There's several points in the task force that came up that I can't really see how the schedule to address, but I also worry that we're short on time, and so maybe I should email those over to you.
Please do. Yeah, would be great, and we can take a look at some of the concerns that you're talking about, and we'll be happy to get back to you about that.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Nathan Cohen, there is an option for you. Some people have told me that you're raising your hand physically. On your screen, if you find a hand, please click on that hand, and that literally is how you raise your hand to join the queue.
So Mr. Cohen, what you do
Sorry,
is
Mr. Cohen, you'll have to click on the participants button first. And once that bar pops up, then you'll see the raise hand button at the bottom right corner.
Thank you, Mr. Mejia.
Our next speaker has the last name Bertolucci.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I was looking over the schedules for specifically the fourth grade, because that's what it relates to us. And it seems very heavy instruction in the morning with live instruction, which is great. But I'm wondering the reason why it's not balanced, where there's maybe some more in the afternoon to kind of keep the kids engaged throughout the day, and then allow them to work a little bit more independently in the middle of the day on the things that they've learned. And then along with that, I noticed that we, in the feedback at the beginning or at the end of the school of spring, we all mostly said that small group instruction was key to learning, but I'm not seeing in this schedule where that's going to be required, that the teachers provide small group instruction. And so if you're trying to leave it up to the students to reach out, I'm not sure that that's going to happen. So I was just wondering, like, specifically, like why you came up with the way the schedule as it looks.
So the fourth grade schedule, the synchronous times that you see there will include whole group, small group, as well as time for individual instruction as well. They basically are going to follow what's called a gradual release of responsibility model, meaning that there's going to be a whole group lesson that kind of explains the concept. If you think in terms of math, it would be a math lesson that's presented. And then there will be small group instruction in support of that general instruction model, while some of the students are working independently on the math. Then those small groups will rotate throughout the week. So it'll be different small groups that meet with the teachers in support of that math instruction. So although you see synchronous instruction kind of blocking out those large periods in the morning, that synchronous instruction for a large portion of that time is going to be a combination of whole group instruction as well as small group instruction with with asynchronous work going on at the same time. Or look at it this way, as some independent work going on while the teachers are meeting in the small groups.
Okay, and then in the afternoon, basically their day's done at noon, or this afternoon schedule, is there going to be anybody checking in with them to make sure they're continuing to do their work, or is that on the parent? Or
so the afternoon is going to be largely asynchronous in instruction, and so the fourth grade is going to have a lot of those specials going on at that time that Mr. Keller referenced earlier in the day, things like PPE, music, the library time, the digital learning with Mr. Bradley that we had talked about, in addition to more of the small group support for the students. It won't be on the student to reach out to get that support from the teachers, although that will certainly be an option. When the teachers have identified that a student or group of students need support, they've left that afternoon time open for additional small group instruction with their students. I think the other thing to keep in mind is that this is a draft. And as the fourth grade team comes to meet in that planning week in August 3rd through 7th, the schedule may have some adjustments based on the feedback that we're getting from this meeting.
okay, thanks.
You bet.
Just to add a little bit there, it doesn't exclude our instructional assistants in helping students throughout the day, including the afternoon, just to add that and let you know.
Is there one per class? Is somebody watching to see when kids might need help? Or
we don't have, sorry, Mr. Broom, we don't have instructional assistants one-to-one at this point, but there will be a rotation of instructional assistants throughout the day.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, I've got T. Maurer.
Hello, everyone. This is mostly just a comment. I'm the parent of a soon-to-be first grader, and just looking at the schedule, I think that there's just too much screen time, and I don't really see it working for the very young children. So I think the sentiment has already been made, and there's been a couple questions associated with that have been answered, and we'll look for more information coming soon. But since this is a draft and you're looking for feedback, I think that there is too much screen time on the current schedule.
Mr. Maurer, thank you very much for that comment.
Thank you.
Let's see. Moving on, I've got Laurel as our next speaker.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. The majority of my questions have already been put out there, which is exciting because I think a lot of us families are on the same page. I did want to just put out there that if you guys could take a look at, as we go into school, and a couple of things where us as parents, how are we really going to be able to meet the teacher ourselves? We always had that day before we started, we got to meet the teacher in person, see who that teacher was, they got to see us. So I would just like you to consider, how can that happen as a parent so that we could get to know the teacher ourselves, even if it's just for a few minutes, or if there's a bio, or if there's a video from the teacher where we could sit down with our child and we could really kind of get to know the teacher a little bit more would be the first thing. And the second thing would just be, don't forget about the whole school concept. I know a lot of focus is right now about our individual teachers, but what I also love about, we go to Forest Grove, my son's gonna be in 4th grade, is about the whole school concept and about making sure that, especially the kindergartners or anybody who's new to our district, understands how great we are as a community and how great we are as a school. And I think it's really important to somehow infuse that into going back to school and making sure that the students realize it's not just about them and their one teacher or class, but that what can we do to make sure that they understand what the school looks like if they're new to Forest Grove, and what do the other teachers, you know, who are they? I know, Buck, you've always introduced all the teachers, and that's always, you know, very exciting. So just something to think about as you guys, I know I appreciate everything you guys have been doing. Your summer has not been what your normal summers would be, and I know there's a lot of parents out there like myself who really appreciate what you guys are doing. But it would be great for us as parents, especially since we're going to be helping to teach our kids, to learn a little bit more about our new teacher and make sure that we understand who they are, how they're going to teach, what's important to them, so that when we're with our kids, we're also, you know, on the same page and teaching them. So again, thank you, and we appreciate your time.
Laurel, thanks a lot. I think it's going to be very important for us to maintain that sense of whole school. And so we'll think of the different kinds of activities that we can do either in a virtual format or, you know, hopefully at some point live. All right, the next speaker I see says Lena.
Woohoo! Okay, sorry.
You're patient, thank you.
Yay! Hi, okay, gosh, one question. That's gonna be hard. Most specifically, this is addressing special education and how resistant Olivia was to the entire online learning experience during the spring. It was a nightmare. We struggled every day. We are very fortunate in having the most amazing teachers who tried to help us as much as possible, even including preparing sensory kits at their houses and bringing them over and dropping them off on our porch. But so what we struggled also, this balance between a general education Google Classroom and a special education classroom and music therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy and physical education. I didn't do it well as a parent. And so some of this, I know some of these questions need to be addressed in my IEP, but also I didn't know which, I couldn't find that balance. Which was I supposed to focus on more? The general ed work, the special ed work? How can I get to her what she needs the most? What support can I get as her primary teacher, because she needs somebody, you have to sit with her every task. I can't leave her for a few minutes to complete a task. So I'm on call those full 6 hours or whatever it is. And so I think that my first question is, I don't know if Claire's still online, but I did ask if what we could be offering to these special ed children this coming around in the fall, and the answer was we will continue as we did in the spring. Well, that didn't work so great for us, and I'm wondering, will special ed be creating any type of in-person small groups, which these children and my child very much needs. And Okay, I'm done with most of my questions. I'm struggling with maybe parent support or parent education of how are we addressing the special education needs of these children.
Well,
Oh, now I muted you. Shoot. Oh, now how did I mute you, Buck?
I don't know. It might have been.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
Okay, perfect.
Mommy's almost finished.
Rita, you know what? I think that Claire is online, so I'm going to toss over to Director Davies and allow her to address some of these special education specific questions.
Hi, Lena and our other parents. I understand the struggles that you've had this time around. You have been great with communicating with us. Most of our students were successful. We do know the exact students who were not. And so our goal right now is to get this kind of giant Titanic launched in a week, a week and a half. And then we will zoom in on our very, very special circumstances and see what we can do for individual situations. But I appreciate everything that you've said. I totally get it. You've been great with communicating with us, and you've been great with your efforts with Olivia. So we will get back to you on this, okay? Oh, you're muted, but you had asked about bringing students back in small groups. That was something that we were considering. At the present time, we're limited by the MOU. We're striking a balance. We have to support our wonderful district employees as well as support our families.
Absolutely.
And so at the present time, our district employees have the right to choose to work from home. And we will see how things evolve as far as when we can actually start serving individual students. But it's gonna be an evolution.
Would your office be interested in providing some type of educational support to parents of special needs children so that we can learn those tools? I mean, we obviously don't have masters in special education, and it can be really frustrating, you know, and so the last thing I want to see is that my daughter, you know, she doesn't understand what's happening with school. That was my other question, how to explain this to her. She knows there's we're just in another boat, you know, as far as explaining and I don't have answers for her. I know none of us do, but
our district is, we know that we need to provide parent education on technology. And so that's also in the works as far as that plan. And then we have bought several new special ed apps. And so we do need to do more outreach to our parents to get parents trained on those apps so that they can help support at home.
Okay.
Those are all great ideas. And then Lena, it sounds like Claire is going to be in pretty close contact with you, as will, you know, the team at Forest Grove. I'm going to keep the meeting moving. Okay, Lena, so I can have some other parents.
Yes. Thank you, Bob. Thanks.
You bet. Tina Tavares, you are back on.
Hi, I just have one other question that I could have asked earlier, but I forgot. Regarding like an attendance policy as far as families who do have to be working during the times that we're doing live meetings and attendance. Like I don't really know what my day is going to look like, and if I have to leave my children with my mom or with a child care provider that cannot facilitate them getting logged on and doing what they need to do to be counted as present for the day, are they just consistently marked absent, or is there like accommodations that can be made for situations like that? Because I know there are going to be multiple families that are working outside the home that might not be able to help the smaller children at that exact time. They may have to be doing things in the evening versus the morning. So I just was concerned about that.
So Tina, we're going to have a window for that attendance taking, and we're going to try to make it as broad in the morning as we can, so that if it's just a matter of trying to get someone to the computer and logged on, there's going to be some flexibility with that morning time. Right now, the current plan is for us to take that attendance in the morning, so we can have those students checking in at that time. Now, if a student is absent, multiple days in a row, then we'll follow up and see if there's any kind of support that we can give or any kind of help that the family might need in order to get the student logged on to start. But I just kind of wanted to let you know that, yes, it is going to be a morning log on, that families are going to be required to meet. But it's not going to be like right at 4:45. There's going to be a window starting at 8:45 and extending into the morning. I want to say the cutoff is like 9:15 or 9:30 so that the final attendance can be into the office by 10 a.m. I think off the top of my head, that's what I remember from the frequently asked questions document. Meg, you're next.
Hi, I am actually piggybacking on Tina's question and I think Christy's question from a few back. And it kind of seems like you guys are sidestepping the answers that we're looking for. When you are a working parent and you have a child who's in first grade, like I'm going to have, it's not about finding childcare. It is about how is my child expected to learn when I am not going to be there to help him learn. This isn't being addressed, and school starting 2 weeks from now, I really feel like we should have an answer.
I hear the concern, but I don't have a specific answer for that question right now.
Okay, so I guess my question is, why don't you have an answer?
Because the plan that we've built was the plan that has gone through the process that we talked about before, and we have built a plan that's going to accommodate as many families as we can, I can't explain why I don't have an answer. I don't have one, and to try and explain why I don't, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say.
Oh, that's very disheartening, and I'm sorry too.
Well, and I don't want Mr. Rogeman to take this one on by himself, Meg. We've all been placed in a very difficult situation, and I believe you've reached out to me through email.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that. It's all I can really say, and I don't mean to sound like, just a talking points or anything, but, we are in this together. So if you have specific things that are going on, please let us know. And, again, as a site principal, I want to help every single family. And when families let me know the struggles they were facing in the spring and even some over the summer, I like to be there for them. I'm paid to be there for them. So if there are specific things that you're not satisfied, I urge you to contact Buckeye. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if you're Forest Grover or Robert Down. I'm assuming my school.
I'm Robert Down.
Yeah. Continue to contact me. Again, for any parent that's out there, I've provided my Google Voice, and I'm going to give it out again right now. 831-275-0083. I accept texts throughout the day, any day, weekends included. I'll continue talking to you, Meg. I don't want you to feel like you're shut out.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, let's see. I've got Samuel Moss.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Hey there, I will have a first grader And in looking over the distance learning schedule, I see that the reading, writing, and math instruction is not live with the exception of the small reading groups and the math support. Does that mean that all the instruction for these subjects will be asynchronous? And can you explain a little what that's going to look like? Is that going to be videos made by the teacher, or is it going to be SWAN and Super Kids videos, or some other form?
When we look at the first grade plans, that morning meeting and attendance period is going to be live from 8:45 to 8:15. And although it says asynchronous, it's going to be students working on their own or working with a study group. So it's a combination of things. So that initial instruction is going to be with the teacher. And then that orange period for those 45 minutes are going to be a combination of the activities where smaller groups are working with the teachers and reading with their peers in a small group, while the other students are working on an independent basis. One of the ways to look at this is a pretty common practice in our first grade classes is to hold learning stations. So it's a centers-based approach to reading, where a teacher is working with a small group, and then you have two other groups in the classes that are doing an activity for 15 minutes, and then the groups shift. And so this is going to be a model that incorporates that concept, where different small groups will work through that in instructional time with the teacher, while they're also doing two other independent tasks that will wind up taking approximately 15 minutes. And then that will continue for the spelling. Does that help answer that question for you?
I think so for now. Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Apple.
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can, Apple. It's great to hear your voice.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who spent their time and energy in creating the schedules for our students. I have a first grader, Robert Down, and I love that you guys are going to be using Seesaw. Friday sounds like a good teacher prep day. My question was also similar to Samantha Moss's question about when will direct instruction happen on the first grade schedule. But my other question was, when the students log in for attendance in the class meeting, what platform are they using? Will it be Zoom or what are they using? Thank you.
Right now, we're in hopes that Google is going to live up to their promises to have breakout rooms, but we are ready to pivot back to Zoom as a district if Google does not have adequate breakout rooms. The breakout rooms are very important, especially for the primary grades. And so the plan is Google Meets, but if they do not have the breakouts, then we will have to adjust and use Zoom for the breakout rooms.
You know, Apple, what we'll do is we'll take another run at the first grade schedule and more clearly identify those times that will be synchronous in instruction and what those other times will look like. So we'll circle back with the first grade teachers and make sure that that's clear for everybody on the document. Thank you for bringing that to us. Sally Jones. Sally, it shows that you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Sally, if you can keep your hand up, I will try to come back to you a little bit later in the meeting. Next, I'm going to unmute Kaylee. Kaylee K. Kaylee, are you still there? Then we will go on to Maria Mishkind.
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
So thank you everyone again for helping and being so flexible and open-minded and handling these tough questions.
Hello?
Oh, someone else.
I've got Mr. Mejia, if you can mute the other callers with the exception of Maria, we will go back to those that weren't able to get on. Okay? Maria, thank you for that.
I'll just go really quickly. I wanted to just piggyback on the comments that I'm hoping that we as parents can have some flexibility with the specials and the curriculum of the specials in the afternoon. So we're not having to put the kids back on the computer if we don't have to, if we can figure out art, library, music, PE on our own. If we could just step in and be creative and flexible, that would be really much appreciated.
I absolutely think that flexibility will be something that we have at this time. So yeah, that, you know, with our special students, there's a reason why it's called an individual education program. So I think that we can be flexible and find what works for our students. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Let's see. Next, I've got one that just says iPhone. So I have unmuted one that just says iPhone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Okay, I emailed you earlier just because I didn't think I was going to be able to attend the meeting. But so my question is, and you probably already have this question, but I am a working parent and I wouldn't be able to have my daughter log on to do the meetings or whatever during the day just because I do have to take her to a babysitter. So I was wondering, is there anything that can accommodate us? Because of the fact that, you know, I get out till like 5:30 and don't get home till 6:30 or 7 sometimes because this whole COVID situation has me slammed at work.
So it's really important that you folks are voicing these concerns, especially the working parents. You know, I know that we do have board members that are in attendance here, and we have a board meeting on Thursday. So this is going to be important for them to hear. What we've done is we've built the schedule that we have with the resources that we have at this time. And so I thank you again for sharing that concern. And again, it's one that the board members are hearing because the board members are present at this meeting. So thank you.
Mr. Rogeman, if I may. Just one quick thought in regards to that, and in thinking back to the question earlier from Meg, you know, the difficulty, there's a huge difficulty for public schools right now in regards to how to offer a program that suits such a variety of needs of parents. And probably the biggest challenge, of course, are parents that are working and are unable to be there with their children if they're during log-on time for distance learning. That is probably the imminent challenge nationwide. I think we're providing the best that we can with the resources that we have, as you said. Any option that goes beyond what we currently have is going to take some special exceptions that right now I'm not seeing in the legislation. However, we're going to continue to take a look and see what we can. So I don't want to have you and Mr. Keller put on a spot that you can't answer, because right now we still need to seek other potential answers to this quandary on the distance learning and working parents. But we'll continue to work on it and certainly have that discussion with the board on Thursday.
Dr. Forrest, thank you. Kaylee K, we're going to go back and try you again, okay? So if you're able to unmute, it'll be your turn.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Oh, yeah, good. Sorry, apologies for the technical issues before. And I really appreciate your tremendous efforts about the distance learning. So I have a first grader, and the dominant language, actually the only language we use at home is not English. So do you have some plan or supplementary measures to help the children whose native language is not English? The reason I'm asking this is that we found that her English is, the English learning curve is not as steep as before the distance learning in the period of distance learning. So I just want to ask if you have any measures for that.
Yes, we do have ELD teachers both at Robert Down and Forest Grove. And I'm just wondering, is this your first year that you're joining our district?
No, we joined the kindergarten and then we're going into the elementary.
Okay.
One of the things that we will do is continue to provide the 30 minutes of EL support that our students get that is outside of the general education classroom. So both Mrs. Lord at Forest Grove and Mrs. Miller at Robert Down are going to be supporting our English learners. Part of their role too will be working to support the students in the gen ed setting, just the regular classroom, so that anything they aren't able to understand, they can assist, help explain, and support our English language learning students. So our ELD program is still up and functioning and intact. And so we'll still have that support built into the schedule. Okay, next is Nathan Cohen.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So my question is a little different. I know that there's somewhat of a plan to go back to either in school or hybrid or blended model some point in October or past that or whatnot. My question is, what kind of, I guess, warning you could say will the parents and community have before students go back to school? And if the school does end up closing again, is it gonna be like school's closing tomorrow and so forth? Like what kind of notification will families be receiving in that matter?
Well, I'm sure Dr. Parse can address this, but I'm just going to say that we will have to have any of our plans approved by our Board of Education. And Dr. Parse, anything beyond that?
No, I think that's right. I mean, any change of plans we'll see ahead of time coming from the state level, and then it'll come to the board level. And also, if it's an issue that has to do with the health department would also have to make a call for the schools that are within the county. So most of those decisions will come with some kind of warning ahead of it. Hopefully more warning than we had when we were told to go into distance learning.
And I think that if we're looking at the announcement to open up schools, one of the things that we would do is maintain distance learning in order to give our teachers and staff enough time to prep for the hybrid program, to make sure that when we do transition to the hybrid program, that we have all of the safety protocols in place that we've been planning for the last few months. So there would definitely be some lead time before we brought the students back to school.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Ogerman, if I may beg your indulgence for a moment,
Sure.
Director Silva was trying to get on to help answer that ELD question.
Okay.
She had just a couple of very brief comments to make, if that's okay.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. I just wanted to point out that part of our district responsibility is to connect with our families of English learners to address the needs for our district continuity learning and attendance plan that we have to write for the Board of Education. And it's going to be very important that if you are interested in connecting with and being a part of this feedback group, please connect with your principals, as I will be conducting a meeting to take in all of your feedback and suggestions and input so that we can make sure that we address the needs of all of our English learner students and their parents, and to support them. So I just wanted you to know that, you know, we have a fabulous English language development teachers at our sites working very closely with our classroom teachers. But we need to hear from you what it is that you need by way of support for your students, not just from at the school, but at home, especially since now we are in a position that we're working together as partners in the education of our children. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you very much, Director Silva. Next up, we have a person identified as Dark's iPad.
Hello, this is Felix. I'm using my mother's iPad, but I'm responding because of my little sister, Victoria Contreras, who's at Forest Grove right now. And I had a question regarding the education-wise for the lessons and such. So will there be any extra resources provided for our children for they can practice and enhance their learning, or if they don't like understand a concept, will there be extra resources? I understand Mr. Keller, my former vice principal, used to I was mentioning the Excel or the IXL. I was wondering if we'd be able to use that as well outside of classroom activities to keep providing and keep enhancing the learning of our students as well.
Absolutely, Felix. Thank you for calling in on behalf of your sister. All of those programs like IXL and Extra Math will be available for you to use outside of the day. The other thing that our teachers will have are other resources that are available, and families can approach them, in order to find extra practice, whether it be for spelling or writing or math skills. So we will have that available for you and your family, and don't hesitate to reach out to us on behalf of your sister. It's great to hear your voice, Felix. Thank you for checking in.
Oh, for sure. Nice to see you guys again.
Absolutely.
We expect you to apply for a band teacher job someday.
Give me another 2 to 3 years and I'll maybe come back and apply. I'll try to get that position.
That would be fantastic.
Mr. Rogeman, if I may recommend, just watching the time, we have about 6 questions left on the queue, with Apple being the last. And I know you'd love to help and answer all these questions, but I also want to recognize that we've been at the questions for quite a while this evening, and we certainly can take more comments and questions via email. But I'd recommend that perhaps we end the queue with Apple, and that would take us, well, a little past 8 o'clock, but up to you, just a recommendation.
Dr. Porras, thank you. Thank you for that. So our next question is going to come from, it looks like Sally Jones. We're going to try to unmute your iPhone again.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Sally, we can.
Ah, it works this time. That's great. Okay, I just have a quick question. I'm wondering, who would a parent need to contact to request a device for a student in the event that the family situation has changed since the last tech survey?
Well, you're lucky in that you work for us, but for any parent that's out there, you could reach out to either principal, our techs on site, and of course, Mr. Matthew Binder. But if you contact me at Robert Down, I'll be more than happy to make sure you get something.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and I can be the point of contact at Forest Grove, and then what I'll do is I'll forward that request to Carrie Parker, who's our instructional technologist at our school, and then he'll make the arrangements to get the devices to the folks that need them. Next, we have Ryan Garcia.
Hello, thank you. My question is more of a comment, really, is regarding single parent and dual working households. And it seems to me that we have a inevitable but still relevant self-selection bias in who participates in the comments and helping these curricula. So one of the things that I'm hearing is that for either dual earners or single parents who can't really facilitate or micromanage the synchronous and the classroom work that needs to be done in the same day, is that they need to reach out to the teacher independently to come up with a plan for their particular student. What it seems to me, though, is that there's going to be a great number of families who are going to be facing these issues, and that a standard policy might be worthwhile to think about, and maybe even another survey to survey parents to see how they're going to be able to sit down, particularly with the younger learners, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, who are going to have a hard time sitting synchronously, being in their class, and then completing the work independently to turn in by the end of the day. I get it, there's tons of challenges, but I think the individual plans will work, but I think there's going to be a lot more people in that boat, mostly because we hear from the people who have the time to chime in and make the comments, and those that are working and out and about might not have their voices heard. Thank you.
Ryan, thank you very much, and it's important that you did have your voice heard here tonight. Once again, I will reference that we do have board members that are at the meeting, as well as the superintendent, and so I think that that point has been made very well. And as I understand it, our dual working families as well as single parent working families are looking for a solution so that instruction does not have to happen within the typical school day, but that there would be an opportunity for that instruction to happen outside of the school hours as well. That is the challenge that we face, and we'll work on a solution to that. Okay. I think that is it for the hands that are up, and it is at 8 o'clock right now. And so on behalf of Mr. Keller and myself and Dr. Porras and all of the hardworking teachers of Robert Down as well as Forest Grove and the hardworking staff, I want to thank all of you parents for coming to this meeting and helping us have some of the difficult conversations that we have. We are very proud of the work that we've done so far, and yet we understand that we're just kind of starting the difficult process that is going to be to implement this distance learning plan. Thank you all once again for coming, and I want to wish you all a very good night. Mr. Keller, do you have any closing words?
You know, I just want to say thank you again. I know this has been very difficult for families. I can't imagine what you're going through. My youngest son is a junior in high school, and obviously he's very independent. So I haven't felt what you guys are feeling right now, what you've gone through. But I definitely have heard you, and I've been listening. And I really mean it when I say reach out. Dr. Porras and Mr. Rogaman know I want to be an advocate for you and with what you need. So please continue the communication.
Thank you very much, everyone. The next step for us is going to be to do the planning and the professional development to help us implement this plan to the best of our ability. We will also be doing any updates that are necessary for the grade level schedules as they occur. And the next venue that you have in order to hear your voice heard is the school board meeting, which is also going to take place via Zoom this Thursday night at 6:30. The only item on the agenda is going to be the academic action plans, especially the distance learning plans for all of the schools in our district, but specifically for the elementary schools. Thank you once again for joining us, and we hope you see you Thursday night. Take care.